Gretch, every summer we love to go away for a weekend with Adam's whole family. And what we have found is that staying in an Airbnb is so much better than going to a hotel. That way we can wake up at different times, gather in the kitchen, drink coffee. We have the pool to ourselves. We are all dog people, so we can bring dogs, have a yard for them. We can stay up late while the kids go to sleep. I mean, it's just so much better to be in an Airbnb. We had one in Santa Barbara that we all just loved.
Yeah, the thing about Airbnb is that it's tailored for you. It offers the perfect accommodation, whether you're traveling with friends or family or on your own with your dogs. You can stay together for less than staying apart. And, it just feels so much more friendly and relaxed to be sharing a meal around a table than around a bed. There's so many reasons why traveling with Airbnb makes a vacation more memorable.
Elizabeth, you and I love finding little ways to make life easier and happier. And one happiness stumbling block can be the difficulty of finding the right clothes that make us feel good and look great. And that's why it's exciting to tell everyone about Daily Look, the #1 highest rated personal styling service that brings the joy back into getting dressed. Daily Look makes it very simple. You take a fun, quick style quiz online where you share your preferences, lifestyle, and what makes you feel your best. Then a professional stylist curates a box just for you, filled with pieces that are perfect for your life.
What you'll love about Daily Look is how it combines convenience with that wonderful feeling of discovering new favorites. If you're ready to simplify your life and bring more happiness into your wardrobe, go to dailylook.com and use the code HAPPIER at checkout to get your first styling fee waived. That's dailylook.com and use code HAPPIER at checkout. Because when you look good, you feel good, and that's something we all deserve.
Hello, we're here for More Happier, a podcast where we get more happier. It's talk about happiness with a little bit of a looser vibe. Today, we are tackling a common happiness stumbling block, which is interviewing for a job. Among other things, we're going to be playing an interview with my friend Jack Rusty O'Kelly III about how to make a great impression. And Elizabeth, it's a great time to be thinking about this because, as we say, September is the other January. You and I both use Labor Day as a chance to think about our own labor, our own work situation, what we want from our career. So it's very timely to be thinking about this. In fact, because on Happier Labor Day, I published a piece in Fastco last weekend. I'll post a link in the show notes about this idea of how managers can use Labor Day as a prompt for how they can work with the people that they manage so that everybody has a happier work life. Because work is so important to happiness. It's such an important part of our lives.
Well, and Gretch, there's new data that more than a quarter of Americans are looking for a new job.
Yes.
And what I find interesting about that is just in my own life, I'm in Hollywood.
Yeah.
There's obviously a lot of news and discussion about how times are hard right now in Hollywood. And I happen to know a lot of people who are interviewing for jobs because they're actually trying to get jobs outside of the industry.
Oh.
And what's interesting to me about talking to Rusty is that in Hollywood, a lot of our interviews are really just meetings. They feel more like first dates. That's a lot of social talk in our meetings. It's not so much a traditional job interview. So I think people now are getting back into this mindset of, okay, I am like going to talk to a marketing company about writing copy for them. This is going to be a more corporate setting.
Yeah.
How do I approach it?
Right. Well, it's funny, though, just as we say, like, if something's true for teenagers, it's probably true for adults. There's a lot of what Rusty says. It's the world may change, the industries may change, but what makes a good interview is pretty consistent. So it is really helpful to hear from an expert about when people are interviewing you, how can you ace that interview?
Yes. Coming up, we will talk to Rusty about how to give a good interview.
Robert Half research indicates 9 out of 10 hiring managers are having difficulty hiring. If you have open roles, chances are you're feeling this too. That's why you need Robert Half. Their specialized recruiting professionals engage their skills with their award-winning AI to connect businesses of all sizes with highly skilled talent in finance and accounting, technology, marketing and creative, legal, and administrative and customer support. At Robert Half, they know talent. Visit roberthalf.com today. And we're back.
Rusty works at Russell Reynolds Associates, which is one of the 5 largest executive recruiting firms in the world. They're hired by companies to help them find executives. In other words, they're headhunters. Rusty co-leads the board and CEO practice for the firm, so he deals with people at the very top for very significant positions. But he's explained that his insights are applicable to anyone applying for a job.
Because interviewing and getting hired are such common happiness stumbling blocks, we wanted to have him on to offer his wisdom. Rusty, hello.
Gretchen, it's so great to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Hi, Rusty.
We're
Hi,
face to
how are
face
you?
here in New York City. Yeah. So, Rusty, we were at dinner one night and you were telling me all these great tips that you are telling the people that you work with about how to get a job. But you said it's basically true for everyone. And so we thought, hey, this is something that so many people go through. Let's have you come in and share all these ideas with everybody.
Yeah, and it's perfect for me, Rusty, because I'm in Los Angeles where I'm constantly changing jobs, constantly having job interviews. So I think your advice applies to everybody, whether it's for a CEO position or a TV writer or a cashier. So this is going to up my game.
Absolutely. I want to make it relevant to everyone. We're going to help you get a job faster.
Good. Okay. So start with what if you could say one thing to people, what's the first thing you would say?
The first thing I would say is apply for a job where you have relevant skills. So we all want to apply for our dream job. There are so many things we would all love to do, but if it's so far out of reach and you really don't have relevant skills, you need to think about, should I be doing this and how long is it going to take? It's not that I want to throw cold water on your dreams, but you need to think about what is the process, and you're filling a job for someone else. Mm-hmm. They are not there to make your dreams come true.
Uh-huh. Mm. And so do you think if you need to make baby steps towards that, to get relevant experience, or do you need to make the case for yourself if you're trying to make a leap like that?
Great comment. I think you need to do both. Uh-huh. So I think you need to build on, and so you can see if you want a job that's here. So I want to be, the regional manager of a chain of X.
Right. A paper company in Pennsylvania.
A paper company in Pennsylvania, or you want to be the regional manager of a group of Starbucks.
Yeah.
You probably need to start with managing one.
Right.
And understand what the job is like. And don't go for, well, I think I could manage, 6 stores. Right. Why? You have to focus on building the steps, but you also, in all interviews, really have to make the case of why you want that job, not any job, why you want that job, what skills you bring to that job. Again, you're fulfilling a need that someone else has.
Right, right. And so, and when you're going into the interview, what are the kinds of things that you should do to get yourself in a place where you can make the case that I'm the answer to your problems?
I think the one thing that you need to do is prepare, regardless. So when you're out in LA interviewing, who are you talking to? How many people are you talking to? When you read the we call it the spec, whatever the job is, there's a description of the role.
Yeah.
Ask yourself, what skills do I have that's going to help fill that role? And prepare. Have a sheet of paper. You don't read through it, but to organize your thoughts in your head about why you fill the qualification or why you have the qualifications that they're looking for.
And do people sometimes not do that?
It is shocking, but they come in and they will want a job. They will want a similar job. They've done a light level of research, but the ones that impress and stand out are the ones that know a lot about the role, the company, the culture. That's one of the key things. You've done some research. You've gone to Glassdoor. You understand the culture of the place and why you would be a good fit there. Everyone does a little something,
right?
But it's the people who stand out, who make it the furthest or get the role, are the ones who've done that extra level of research.
This is kind of reminding me what they tell you when you're applying to college. It's like yeah, I know you want to go to college, but why do you want to go to our college?
That's exactly right. That's a really great analogy. Why do you want to go to that college?
Yeah. Why is it Middlebury? Like what? And you have to know about. Well, you said to me the other day, prepare to show you care, because that's how you show that you care, is by preparing.
That's exactly right. Because if you don't take the time to prepare, the message that you're inadvertently sending to the interviewer is, this wasn't worth my time.
Oh, right.
It's worth your time. I mean, it's their time. Respect their time by preparing. Always have a few good questions. 3, 4 good questions.
Yeah, I interview people and get interviewed, so I'm on both sides. And it shocks me how often people come in and have no idea what my writing partner and I have done before. Like they didn't even look us up on IMDb.
Right.
And how does that make you feel?
Oh, they're dismissed immediately. We're just like, forget it. They don't care enough to even Google us for 5 seconds in the lobby. Then they don't really want to be on our show. I mean, forget it.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. And that lesson applies to whether you want to work in Starbucks, whether you want to be an executive, whether you want to be a store manager, whether you want to be a cosmetologist.
Right.
I mean, it's truly universal.
Right. Right.
Prepare and know the company, the organization, and preferably the people that you're going to be interviewing with.
Okay, now I always like the things people do wrong, because it feels like it's easier not to do the things that are like the obvious mistakes. So what are some of the common mistakes where you're like, just don't do that, and you'll save yourself some grief?
A couple come to mind.
He said Riley.
More than a couple.
Yeah.
I'd say in an interview, the mistakes that people make, one is they talk too much. They come in gun-ho, selling themselves. They don't start with some questions. So you've got to show some intellectual curiosity. Don't come in, even though you've prepared and you think you know all the answers, don't go in telling people that you know all the answers. Ask insightful questions. And then once you ask a few questions, then you can start to say, well, I think I would fit because of, or the interviewer will ask you, well, okay, based on what you've heard, what would you say? Be crisp. Don't go on too long. If you are thinking you're talking too much, you are.
Okay. Well, and then related to that, how do you think, it used to be that resumes were supposed to be a page. Is that still true?
It varies. So it goes with your career. If you are under 30, if you are under 35, you could probably get away with one page, maybe one page, and then your school and other interest on the top of the second page.
Yeah.
As you get into 15 to 20 year of career, fine to be 2 full pages. And then as you sort of pass that 20 to 25 year mark, it's fine to go to 2.5 pages, but that's another mistake. We see people from academia who just give us their CV. It's 10 pages long.
Right.
No one wants to sort through that.
No.
You're right.
And what that tells us is you didn't take time to prepare, and you didn't think about who the reader was.
Yeah, what's relevant to me. You're making me do that work.
Exactly.
Right. And how else can you make it easier on your interviewer?
Make sure that your resume is up to date. One of the things that is often discouraging is when you see resumes and they just keep adding on to the top. And as you and I joked about, I don't care about your husband's job in 1993 to 1995. It's really not relevant anymore. So take the time to edit the old things in your resume, those things sort of a decade back or more, and just shorten them to one sentence, maybe 2 bullets. The older it is, the less relevant it is. People are hiring you in any job basically for your last 5 to 10 years of experience.
Oh, interesting.
That's what's they want to look at the career path, and they want to look for a pattern and a trajectory. But the skills that they're mostly interested in are those that you've been using over the past decade because they're the sharpest. And another thing is that people cannot remember more than 3 things. It is, people like, here are the 5 or 6 things about me. I can't remember 5 or 6 things about myself.
Right.
But seriously, people come in with this laundry list. What we have learned through interviewing, through lots of management consulting studies, is that the listener remembers 3 big themes. And so paint 3 big themes about who you are.
Oh, that's interesting.
So they can walk away and they'll probably remember 2 of the 3.
Oh, well, that's like, Elizabeth, you said advice. How for in your job, your industry, you kind of have to have your story, like your origin story and kind of the story of who you are. And I can imagine
you might say like, well, what are the big three things about me? Like, I'm curious, I'm analytical, I'm a people person, or whatever. I mean, those are probably too broad.
And
but
please don't use the last one. I'm a people person.
Don't say people person.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. The other
Up
two.
with people.
Yeah. Curious though, analytical. Add to that. But what are the three sentences that you want people to take away about you?
And try to weave those themes in.
And make it relevant to that job, because that's another mistake people make, is they have their three things that they apply to everything, and they don't tailor it to the situation.
Yeah.
So it won't be the same for everything. And by the way, you could have a couple of different resumes. So, Elizabeth, as you think about your world, if you're applying to be a writer, you're probably going to emphasize different things than if you're applying to be a production assistant or a different type of role. So, take the time. You don't need 6. You don't need 4. But you could have 2 themes if you're going down different tracks, so that, because it's also a guide for the interviewer to ask you questions, and you want them to ask you relevant questions about your background.
And then the final question I want to ask is, do you think it's worthwhile to practice? I mean, it feels kind of fake and artificial, but do you think it's worth like getting somebody to fake interview you?
Absolutely, because it makes you more comfortable.
Yeah.
And so having your spouse, having a brother, a sister, fake interview you for half an hour, it gets your mind focused. It gets you thinking.
Gets you crisper, as you said.
It gets you crisper. It makes you suddenly hear for the first time what you've been thinking in your head, and it will probably come out slightly different than what you were thinking.
Well, and Rusty, what else can people do if they're nervous? Practicing is good, but sometimes the stakes in an interview feel so high. Do you have other suggestions for how people can come in and show their best selves?
Well, I think a little bit of nervousness is good. I was a little nervous before I came on this podcast. I've never been on a podcast before. So a little bit of nerves is good because it gets you to focus.
Yeah.
I think that each person needs to realize the point of diminishing returns. And so there is a point where you can over practice. There is a point where you begin to sound stilted. And so that's something you can do. I think taking a walk around the block before the interview.
That's a good one.
Clearing your head, having a cup of coffee, so that, don't study things till the end. You're not cramming for a test. You want to come in as a refreshed, natural person into the interview. And just something as simple as taking a walk down the block, sitting down on a bench and just, thinking for a few minutes about, who am I? And just allowing yourself a moment of reflection, not preparation, because you should have been doing that, a few days, a week before.
So not that feeling of cramming.
Great point. You're not cramming. Right. At the last hour or so, you're just reflecting. One other tip is do the morning of your interview, whether it's a big company or a small company, to the point you made, Elizabeth, do a Google search to see if anything has happened. Because if something has happened and, you're even a small company in the area, just in case there was a fire, there was something that happened.
Or it happened in New York City, like a sewer burst, and it was like giant flooding in this one area. And if you didn't know that, they would have felt like, where have you been? Even though you're like, I live in a completely different part of the city. Why would I have known that you had a sewer burst?
Exactly. That's a great point. Have something, be ready for people just to fill the air at the beginning. And, people are going to talk about the weather, or they're going to talk about the current event of the day. It is true. Do avoid politics. Do avoid religion. Yeah. That's never a winner. But it is. You should know what's been happening in the town or the area, but particularly related to the business, because I think that's sometimes a mistake people make is they haven't done a Google search in a week or two. And particularly if you're interviewing in large corporate America, there have been some big announcements, and then they make a reference to it in the interview.
Yes.
And all of a sudden you're like, what?
Yes.
And it happens all the time.
Interesting.
So you have to be prepared for that.
Excellent. Rusty, thank you so much. I know you're so busy and you travel all the time. It was so nice of you to come by here in New York City and to help everybody with this stumbling block.
Well, This was a joy. And, Elizabeth, let us know if these tips were helpful to you. I hope they were practical and helpful. And I hope all your listeners get something out of this. It was fun for me to do. So thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rusty.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Those were such great suggestions from Rusty. That is so helpful. Coming up, I'm going to ask Elizabeth a few more questions about her job interview experiences. But first, this break.
Toyota has been building a legacy of excellence for generations, from pioneering hybrid technology to redefining the standards of safety and efficiency. Toyota is always innovating, always making progress. And with Toyota's legendary lineup of reliable cars in stock at your local Toyota dealer, you can experience the legacy firsthand.
So check out the unparalleled performance of the new 2025 Camry with style, efficiency, and available tech to get you anywhere. Or test drive a capable and affordable Corolla, equipped with everything you need to stay cool and connected. And both Camry and Corolla are available with all-wheel drive, giving you the control to go beyond. Quality, reliability, efficiency. That's the legacy of Toyota. Visit buyatoyota.com, the official website for deals, to find out more. Toyota, let's go places.
Fall is calling, and Wayfair has everything you need to welcome the new season into your space. Gretch, for us, fall means time to use our fire pit. We love sitting outside around our fire pit at night, but we did not have any outdoor tables to put a drink on. So we visited the site, and there was a huge selection of outdoor tables, which were exactly what we needed. I ordered 2, and they have transformed our fire pit experience.
No matter your style or budget, Wayfair is the go-to destination for everything autumn. Anything you need for the entryway, dining table, kitchen, and more. It has a huge selection of fall essentials like seasonal decor, bakeware, fire pits like you, and more. Wayfair makes it easy with fast and free shipping, even on the big stuff. They'll even help you set it up. Get ready for the season of change. Visit wayfair.com or get the Wayfair mobile app. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home.
Now your ideas don't have to wait. Now they have everything they need to come to life. Dell Technologies and Intel are creating technology that loves ideas, loves expanding your business, evolving your passions. We push what technology can do, so great ideas can happen right now. Find out how to bring your ideas to life at Dell.com. Welcome to now. So Elizabeth, having heard what Rusty had to say, I have a few more questions about your job interview experiences. One thing is, he didn't offer a suggestion that I think is something that you and Sarah do, which is that you'll actually drive to a building in advance if you're not sure exactly how to get there.
Yes, we have done that. If it's something really important, we want to know where it is, where to go in for parking. And then on the day of the interview, we like to get there very early, probably half an hour early. And, a story related to that, Gretchen, is when Sarah and I were hiring our first assistant, Tony, who was incredible, and we're still friends with Tony. He showed up to the interview very early. I mean, maybe 45 minutes early. And that is largely why we hired him. We had never hired anyone before. And we said, well, this guy clearly really wants the job because look how early he got here. That tells us that he'll probably be responsible.
Right.
And never regretted it.
Well, here's just a side question that occurs to me, Elizabeth. What is it like to interview as a team? Because that's different. How do you handle who answers what questions? And does that make it easier or harder or both? How does that play out?
Well, because our meetings tend to be more social, sort of discussions, it's usually okay because people aren't usually saying, what are your 3 best qualities or what's your biggest challenge? It's usually more just free-flowing conversation. And we kind of have our pitter-patter, so we're pretty used to it. But sometimes I'll just look at Sarah or she'll look at me. And then if you look at the person, it's saying, okay, you answer. However, Gretchen, you know what has made this more difficult is Zoom.
Oh, of course.
So if we're in a room, we never have to say, you answer that, or Sarah, do you want to answer that? Or Liz, why don't you take this? But on Zoom, I do find that sometimes there's like a long silence because we're not sure who's going to answer.
Right.
So that has been challenging for us. And I'm not sure what the solution is because you can't really be texting. You want to be looking into the camera.
Right.
So that has been a bit of a challenge.
Well, it's interesting because the research shows that when we're face to face with people, there's all kinds of information that's passed just in posture and intonation and glance that is just much harder to read when you're behind a screen. And so some things are easier, but some things are a lot tougher. So that doesn't surprise me that you're finding that to be a challenge.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, the good news is you only have to look ready for the interview on the top. So
Right. Yes.
I'll be wearing sweatpants and a really nice shirt. And I always live in fear that I'll forget what I look like on the bottom. And like there'll be something at the door that I have to get up and I won't turn my camera off. And some executive will see my ratty yoga pants.
Right.
But so far, that has not happened.
Well, and you don't have to worry about the traffic and the parking, but you do have to worry about your Wi-Fi signal. I remember there was that one time where your Wi-Fi went out and you were going bonkers because it was such an important meeting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm not great in a crisis. We have established this.
Well, if you're on the hunt for a new job, we hope that these tips and suggestions and discussion will help you ace your interview so that you land your next opportunity. And on the topic of jobs, the job hunting process and the interviewing process can feel very, very high stakes. And as we've been talking about, it can be easy to get in your head, to really worry, to imagine every single thing that can go wrong. And so here is a little story that I think helps with that kind of issue.
I love fables, paradoxes, koans, parables, all kinds of teaching stories. Recently, in a conversation, I invoked the punchline of one of my favorite teaching stories to make a point, the story of the bear and the two hikers. My daughter Eliza said, I use that story all the time. It turns out to apply in so many situations. So in case you haven't encountered this useful little teaching story joke, here's my version. Once upon a time, two hikers were traveling through the woods when they saw a mean-looking bear coming toward them. They started to run, and when one guy realized that the laces of his boots were undone, he stopped to retie them. What are you doing? The other fellow yelled over his shoulder. You have to run. You have to outrun the bear. No, yelled the faster guy over his shoulder as he sped ahead. I don't have to outrun the bear. I just have to outrun you. I asked Eliza about the context in which she'd invoked this story. A friend was applying for a job, she told me, and he was worried about the fact that he wasn't an absolutely perfect fit for it. And I said to him, you don't have to be perfect. You just need to be a little bit better than the other people applying for the position. You don't have to outrun the bear. You just have to run a little faster than the person next to you. It's surprising how often I find myself telling this funny little story. It's funny because it's true. Sometimes it's reassuring to remember that to get where we're going, we don't have to be perfect or outstanding. We just have to work a little harder than someone else.
Well, I really love that teaching story. I think about it all the time. How about you, Elizabeth? Does that resonate with you?
Oh, totally. Because you can really get in your head about being the perfect fit.
Yes.
And you don't have to be. You just need to be a little bit better than others.
Right.
But it reminds me of my friend Lori, who said she's never gotten a job she's qualified for. She's like, I always am learning on the job, which I love. It's like you just have to seem like you're going to be better than other people for the job, whether you know how to do the job yet or not.
Right. Because you could think, well, I need to be the ideal candidate. And it's like, no one will be the ideal candidate. You just have to be better than all the other candidates. And sometimes that's just very comforting to think of. Another thing that I think about a lot is having the right thing to say. This is something that I'm constantly on the hunt for examples of when people know the right thing to say when someone is sad or stressed or upset. And Jamie, my husband, often has the right things to say. So I'm often, like you, Elizabeth, my sister, the sage, I'll write down things that Jamie says because he often gets it right.
Yeah, and Gretch, on the subject of job interviewing and getting a job, or let's say not getting a job, I know like I have found there are certain things that I can say to a younger writer or a more experienced writer or myself that can really help in feeling better about not getting a job.
Right. Well, when I'm searching for the right words to say to help somebody feel better and I'm at a loss, I often think back on things that people have said to me that have really reassured me or really sort of helped me through a tough time. And here's one conversation I had with a friend that meant so much to me when we had it, and I still think about it often.
Many years ago, I was a clerk for Supreme Court Justice Sandra Day O'Connor. This was a rare, amazing, once-in-a-lifetime work experience. There are many reasons that I don't regret law school and my years as a lawyer before becoming a writer, and the chance to work for Justice O'Connor is one of them. Very sadly, the justice recently died, and as I reflected on her life and on our time together, I remembered something that happened when I was applying for my clerkship with her. I was a third-year law student. I'd applied for the clerkship, and I was thrilled because the justice invited me to come to Washington, D.C. to meet her in her chambers for an interview. I traveled from New Haven to D.C., and it was the day of the interview. And as you might imagine, I was nervous. Fortunately, I happened to have a good friend from college who was clerking for Chief Justice Rehnquist at the time, so we met for lunch before my interview. He explained to me what a clerkship required, and he told me how his year had been going. And at the end of the conversation, I confided to him, "The thing is, Jim, did you ever worry about whether you're good enough for the job? I mean, I wonder, can I really do this?" And Jim didn't say, "Oh, Gretchen, you're great. You're smart," or anything like that, which wouldn't have made me feel any better. He said, "Gretchen, she's a justice of the Supreme Court. She has hired dozens of clerks. It's her problem to figure out if you're good enough to do the job. You focus on trying to get the job." I found this enormously comforting. Instead of thinking, "Can I do this?" I focused on doing my best. My friend found the right thing to say. Instead of offering me words of praise or reassurance, which wouldn't have comforted me at all, he reminded me that someone else was in a better position to judge my ability. I realized, if Justice O'Connor thinks I can do this job, I can probably do this job. It was comforting because it was true.
Well, Gretch, I love that story. And I have told other people that story about you when it's been relevant to me or to them, because it really is so reassuring.
Yeah, well, it's what I say, like, it's helpful because it's true. It's reassuring because it's true. It's comforting because it's true. And, and as people are in this other new year of September and thinking about their work lives around Labor Day, reassessing their work lives, for people who are out there interviewing and looking for new jobs, it can be very stressful. It's not always easy to know what to say or how to behave. So, we hope that these tips and reminders will be useful to you if you're in that situation or if someone you care about is in that situation. We can all learn from each other.
Yes, happy interviewing, everybody.
Yes. The best time to start a happiness project is 20 years ago. The second best time is now.
Gretch, I'll never forget when Sarah and I interviewed for The Shield and they said flat out, "Why should we hire you?" which people don't usually do.
Yeah.
And the only thing I could come up with was, "We'll always be on time."
Well,
and
that turned out to be the magic answer.
Hey, we got the job.
Well,
not because we had a great interview, because they liked our script.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, that's funny.
From the Onward Project.
Time is luxury, which is why Polestar spent so much time designing and refining every aspect of Polestar 3, their luxury electric performance SUV, so you can drive with up to 315 miles of range, so you can listen in 3D with up to 25 speakers and Bowers & Wilkins surround sound, and you can seamlessly stay connected with Google built in the entire time you're driving. All to make the time you spend behind the wheel of Polestar 3 the best time of your day. Book your test drive at Polestar.com.